Many practitioners approach early-stage meditation as a purely cognitive or spiritual exercise, treating the physical body as an afterthought. But the structural reality dictates a different approach. The physical body is the absolute prerequisite for any advanced mental state. We can define the lower Dantian as a precise, measurable biomechanical control hub located in the lower abdomen. Look at this mechanical engagement. When intentionally activated, the lower abdomen functions as a structural fulcrum, actively expanding and releasing under strict physiological control. Activating this specific hub triggers a synchronized cascade across 4 distinct biological systems: vascular, respiratory, neural, and energetic. Translating the abstract concept of the Dantian into strict physiological mechanisms is the only reliable method to achieve stable, repeatable results in early-stage practice. The abdominal cavity serves as the primary reservoir for the human vascular system, storing the majority of the body's blood volume at any given moment. This 3D wireframe model isolates that specific vascular density, showing the scale of the veins and arteries housed within the lower torso. Physically opening and releasing the musculature of the lower abdomen acts as a mechanical trigger, initiating a gravity-assisted structural shift. Notice the fluid dynamic response in the model. As the musculature releases, a massive volume of blood shifts downward, pooling into the lowest part of the pelvic basin. This downward pooling creates immediate physiological relief higher up in the body. Vascular pressure is rapidly drawn away from the brain and the chest cavity. We can measure this mechanical event. The localized pressure dials in both the cranium and thorax actively drop out of a high-pressure red zone and stabilize in a low-pressure green zone. This physical drop in cranial and thoracic pressure directly correlates with the cessation of chest tightness and the emergence of mental clarity. A clear mind in meditation is an engineered result of this downward vascular redistribution. This mechanical dependency extends directly into the respiratory system. The diaphragm relies on the structural state of the lower abdomen to function optimally. When the abdominal muscles are restricted or tense, they create a bottleneck. They physically block the diaphragm from descending during a standard inhalation. Look at this cross-section of the torso. The unmoving lower abdominal wall acts as a hard physical barrier, preventing the contracting diaphragm from expanding downward into the cavity. Intentionally relaxing the lower Dantian removes this blockade, opening the respiratory floor. With the wall relaxed outward, the diaphragm can now plunge significantly deeper into the abdominal cavity, driving up the total lung volume metric. This expanded biomechanical space allows the lungs to pull in a higher volume of oxygen per breath cycle. That continuous oxygen surplus accelerates cellular repair and establishes a higher baseline of available physical energy. This oxygen surplus provides the necessary metabolic fuel for the physiological changes occurring later in practice. Beyond shifting fluid and air, the lower Dantian plays a critical role in the body's electrical signaling. The pelvic and lower abdominal region operates as a structural junction where the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems converge. This map of the autonomic nervous system highlights those dense, overlapping neural plexuses converging specifically in the lower abdomen. Mechanical activation and relaxation of this exact region facilitates an unobstructed signal flow between the brain and the lower body. Watch how these pathways of light pulse continuously up the spinal column to the brain and back down to the abdomen, demonstrating an equalized bidirectional loop between the sympathetic and parasympathetic trunks. By stabilizing the signals passing through these major autonomic plexuses, the body can shift out of a chronic stress state, enabling sustainable hormonal regulation. This precise neural regulation restores systemic vitality, maximizing the body's ability to recover from continuous stress. Practitioners must utilize the lower abdomen to mechanically balance these neural trunks to physically sustain the rigors of advanced cognitive focus. Intensive practice often induces a common pathology, unwanted upward energy movement. This upward flow produces physical symptoms, specifically high pressure pooling in the head and acute chest tightness. In this abstract physiological map, bold red arrows are flowing aggressively upward, creating volatile pressure zones trapped inside the skull and thorax. The regulatory intervention requires actively placing cognitive awareness and mechanical focus directly into the lower abdomen. This localized focus acts as a biomechanical and neurological anchor for the entire system. Engaging that anchor illuminates the focal point in the lower abdomen. The red upward arrows instantly reverse direction into cool blue pathways flowing steadily downward, completely clearing the upper body bottlenecks. This downward redirection stabilizes the physiological system, pulling the body out of acute distress. Downward regulation via the lower Dantian is the engineered antidote required to counter the physical strain of intense meditation. The vascular, respiratory, neural, and energetic systems function as a single unified loop, anchored by the mechanics of the lower abdomen. In this complete 3D torso model, we see the entire system operating in optimal synchronization. The diaphragm pumps deeply, vascular volume pools smoothly in the basin, and balanced neural pathways pulse evenly up and down the spine. Structural optimization provides the physical stability required to sustain the mental states sought in advanced practice. However, knowing this mechanical framework and actually executing it are two very different things. Applying incorrect, forceful physical effort, or generating forced, unnatural tension within the body, completely fractures this precise biomechanical synchronization. The structural data indicates that the vast majority of practitioners are actively misusing the lower Dantian, replacing relaxation with rigidity and causing systemic harm in the process. Understanding the physiological model provides the blueprint, but if the mechanical execution is flawed, the entire system collapses.